We ready to begin? Let's begin. The agenda is made up of some items that a bunch of pilots suggested a while ago, so let's start with that. First item on the agenda is the solar panel status, and I think Richard has some information on what's going on. If you share with him the last that you told us.
Yeah, so obviously we have the real estate to be able to do something. It's a matter of making it something that's of good financial sense. So because we are about 4.5 miles off from Route 2, that's the nearest point of interconnection of three-phase power through Central Maine Power. We could go out the other side of the airport to Madison Electric, but they claim they don't have capacity to take on our solar energy. So that kind of puts us dead in the water. We've had 3 or 4 different private entities out there reviewing the property to determine whether or not it's feasible or not for them, and that's what keeps coming back to us. Then we could look theoretically down the line. There's three-phase power, not a half a mile, I don't think, outside the gate that goes from Waste Management's facility out to Madison Electric. Now they tell me that line is at full capacity, but future operations of Waste Management intend to utilize more of the energy that they're producing on site at their location, so they wouldn't need that three-phase to be able to feed back what they are generating for energy.
Well, there's contractors prowling all over Maine trying to find spots for solar power generation, and they enter into a lease with the landholder that pays them royalties for as long as the lease lasts. If you've got real estate, you just don't mind the eyesore, there's really not much downside to it. I've reviewed a bunch of those leases.
Yeah, but so our problem is the cost of interconnection. So Madison Electric says that they can't or won't, and Central Maine Power is 4 miles away.
So tell Central Maine Power that you're looking at competitors and you want to know what their best shot is. I mean, if they're gonna get something out of this, they'll make a deal with you, but you have to be able to tell them what the benefit is to them.
They don't get anything out of it.
Can't they take the electricity to sell?
No. The electricity, Central Maine Power Company is only a transmitting entity. It only transmits, it does not sell electricity. So they have no interest in the electricity. For them, this is,
I'm sorry, Charlie, I didn't mean to.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, who is financing and building these humongous solar farms all over the place?
Those are private entities that are selling the power. In most cases, in Massachusetts and Connecticut, because there's legislation in those states that allows for premium green rates to be paid by consumers if they can be certified that they're buying clean or green power. So private entities all over the world are building solar farms because they can sell it for a premium price in those areas that allow premium prices to be paid.
Do you think a private entity would build the infrastructure for the 4.5 miles out to Route 2?
No, because again, there's a separation between transmission and distribution, which is the sole purview of either CMP in their territory or Madison Electric in their territory. They are the only ones that can transmit.
So a private entity couldn't run the power lines?
Not across somebody else. They could run it across their own land. If they own the land, they could.
But not along Airport Road?
They probably, no, that is within the purview of whatever company, either Madison Electric or CMP that has that.
So does that mean
I have a suggestion, because we're all in here, we know just enough to be dangerous about this. topic. I have a close friend who was in-house counsel for Versant up in Bangor. And she deals with this stuff all the time. So just as you're talking, it just dawned on me, call Allison and she may be willing to come down here and do a presentation. Because she hooks these things up all the time and buys the rights to the power that's generated.
Again, they can't buy the rights to the power. The power is, separated from the distribution and transmission.
Somehow, I mean, they invest millions and millions and millions of dollars in these solar farms. So there's gotta be some financial incentive for them to do that.
Well, the financial incentive is that they're paid for the transmission of the power. So in other words, when you get your electric bill every month, there's two things on that bill. One is the transmission or distribution. And the other is the power itself.
Yeah.
So they get paid, the power company gets paid for transmitting the power. And the infrastructure. And those rates are set by the PUC based upon the cost of infrastructure and the cost of transmission.
So this gal is like a PUC expert. I'm just saying, it wouldn't be a bad idea for me to talk to her and for her to get in a primer on how.
If you don't mind flying in by her, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
We've got this.
Yeah, nothing. I had lunch with her twice last month.
If we could get her to come into an advisory council, we can share it with the advisory council.
Yeah, I mean, she's a very, very nice woman, very talented, smart. Easy on the eyes, you know, so you got the whole pack.
If that's what people wanna do, I'm fine with that, but I will tell you, Versant is a different market than this.
But she,
And this is, the problem here is, as Richard has indicated, we have a unique situation in that Madison Electric is a separate entity,
yeah, and they don't want anything.
and they don't wanna deal with it. And to get to CMP, it's 4 miles. So our problem is not in, whether it's a good place to build a solar field or whether there's companies willing to come in and put them in. All that is true. But once they've got it, they gotta connect somewhere, and we have a problem with connection.
What about going the other way, across the river into Stacks to connect to CMP? It's a lot, it's less.
I don't know where the boundary lines are between Madison Electric and CMP.
So would it not, I'm just asking, would it not make sense to have this person come down, at least we get an education to figure out where, if there's anything we do,
That's a great idea.
can?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, you got nothing to lose by doing it, and he's got,
Okay, you're gonna take care
I'll
of it,
take care of that.
and let me know, and we'll set it up for them, whenever you
I
get
mean, I
it.
can't guarantee you that she will come down
Yeah.
here and talk to us, but she will definitely talk to me.
Yeah, okay.
I've known her for a long time.
I had one question on this. What happened with the whole thing we still before, like Madison Electric had to sign off? Even if it went to CMP and they wasn't willing to do that, is that true or is it?
They have to sign off because we're in Madison jurisdiction geographically, but they don't want the expense of coming to us. But it's been indicated that PUC would necessarily require them to allow us onto the grid. And if not the PUC, the political pressure
Would allow it.
That's what I thought.
So it's just a matter of getting it to the grid.
It's right, it's not a matter anymore of, will Madison Electric allow us to feed into Central Maine Power? If we can get our way to Central Maine Power, great.
Because that was an issue before.
Because it'll take us a mild amount of political pressure and they would have to sign.
That was an issue before.
It was.
Right, but there's gotta be enough profit in some of these deals long-term for developers to front the connection charges. I mean, everything is negotiable.
The problem I think that you have in terms of the connection is probably the acquisition of easements, unless we're able to come out the front and do, that waste management point of interconnection. Because the nearest three-phase for Madison Electric is out, it's driving the gate to the right, down that way, where we own quite a ways off the end of the runway, and then there's only one property owner to get to the end of Child's Road.
Yeah.
And that's, I'll say, the path of least resistance in terms of interconnecting.
Well, let me talk to Allison and see, because they're involved in these projects all over Maine. And she's personally supervised a bunch of them, so she knows a lot, there may be something. Charlie's obviously the smartest person in the room when it comes to this topic, even more than I think the rest of us do. But she will know, it right down to the quarter of an inch or a quarter of a dollar.
If nothing else, we'll get an education that we don't have. Go to bed. When I hear some of these numbers being thrown around that some of these towns are getting for panels, that gotta do everything we can to try to get it. Anything else on this topic?
Nope.
I think this is just gonna be an ongoing investigative process to see what
Yeah.
options there are for us.
Financials, monthly financials. Mr. LaBelle.
Yeah. So I don't have financials in your packet, and that is because I looked at Q1 financials, and quite frankly, the way that your books are being kept at the airport, I would argue are illogical for our purposes. We want to look at expenses and revenues and not all of the other fixed assets and things like that. When I got the numbers last week, I'm looking at them and we're backing these numbers out because they show on the expense side, but they don't show on the income side and all of these other different things. So we're flushing through that right now to make it a more user-friendly review of the position of the airport without having to back things out, because we're backing out our grants and the grant expense correlated to the improved fixed asset.
You've already convinced me. You got CPA, figure that out.
It's bad, and then, so the other component, so what I can tell you is that there's. You guys texting each other?
No, there's something coming in through that.
You do have a reserve account of approximately $150,000. That, best I can figure, has been maintained for 13 or 14 years by the town of Norwich under its capital reserve program. That is in addition to the monthly contribution made to the airport.
Well, all of us want to help the airport generate revenue that goes to the town. I mean, personally, you've been great to me from the beginning, and the town, I haven't had any issues at all about it, but if we can show the taxpayers of Norfolk that we're generating positive money for them, it would have an impact, and that we could grow on that.
So I give you my mile high overview of the Q1, which last year Q1, the airport generated a loss of approximately 4. This Q1 generated a loss of approximately 9. That's largely to do with the significant repair on the large tractor.
Yeah.
Which was a $9,000. We would have been in a pretty good position. Now, there are some deferred expenses that haven't been booked back or whatnot. But that's gonna be a part of how we're gonna reconfigure the accounting. There's no get rich quick at the airport, and it's gonna take any amount of time to turn the page, because what predates half of us, I think, is pre-existing debt to the town. That's from two sources. I think one of them was operating and one of them was a larger investment.
Yeah.
In a project out there. That has been going down over time. And I'm trying to find the rationale behind that, because candidly, I can't prove it in the numbers right now.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say is, if we can see month by month, whether we're going backwards or forwards. It's helpful to us to see how much the deficit is and compare it to, okay, what can we do to fix that?
So I think what you're gonna look at is you're gonna see an operating deficit of approximately $20,000 to $25,000. Average trend now.
Per year?
per year. Now, that doesn't take into account the increase that you folks approved at your last meeting, it'll take effect July 1. That obviously hasn't flushed out. You've got a remaining deficit to the town that's in the ballpark of $100,000. And I say that, and I'm very preliminary about it, it was about $150,000 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's supposed to have been reduced by 10 cents on the gallon, contributed back to the town, but I just found out that for the last 2 years, that 10 cents a gallon has been kind of sitting over here and didn't get applied to your debt, so.
Yeah.
We're trying to track that debt back to the town, because I think that that's, even if you're not generating revenue. If you're paying down that debt, you're moving in the right direction. It is generating
Right,
revenue,
right.
you're paying that, but people aren't gonna see it.
I know.
Your checking account's not pushing, you've got about 20,000, but we've got accounts payable of. Almost 19, we've written a check that will deplete that 20, so we just wait for more revenue to come in before we pay that to the engineer. So that check has been cut, but it hasn't been mailed, that's how close we run on our.
It's just that all of us feel like we're sort of in the dark in terms of where we stand in the finances and compare that to what we think we can do for you. And I think it would help you, help us gauge, you know, how much effort we need to devote to this and what we
Yeah,
can.
so right now, high level. I think we're on track to start to trend at a slight gain. On the annual, if we get a full year of new rates.
Yeah, good.
And then that gets reviewed annually, but obviously with revenues going up, costs end up going up. We have areas for redundancy, we have long-term things that, you know, how do you pay your fair share, your 5% share of your federal projects or larger projects? The only way that we've made that happen, we received $75,000 in COVID cash. And then we received about 100 in, stumpage.
Yeah,
That's in the last 7 years. And that's what's brought you to a long-term ability preliminarily to bust that debt down a bit.
so
But those are one-time things, unless COVID's gonna come again and we're gonna get someone who's gonna send us another 75,000, trees go really quick, we get another 100, those one-time windfalls are out. So we've got it. We're gonna be operating to break even, maybe slight gain.
so, I mean, if we can figure out a method to give you even just a couple thousand a month, I mean,
Correct.
all of that adds up over a year's period of time.
Right, so that is, you know, anywhere that you can drive an additional revenue, that's not at a user cost necessarily. If you say, let's go to the fuel prices, well, we can start to play with fuel prices. But I think. You'll start to
You know,
see
people,
consumption of it.
That's right.
so. I guess what we have to do is identify, and this would be our job, the things that we could do to bring more money and give it to you.
Which is better than the reason behind the solar panels.
I just think that that's an opportunity to explore, we need to, before we rule that out, we need to get right in, drill down to the bottom.
Anything else on this?
Does Norwood Walk have any kind of an economic development incentive for new business?
Not necessarily, if it was a substantial investment, we would look to tax increment financing, TIP programming, that could help shelter the tax and potentially, kick back some of that tax revenue to encourage investment. We have loan programs, right now they're $25,000 loan program, if you need it, it's a low interest loan. We've got facade programs, so if you're looking to improve the exterior of the building, we have things like that, we don't have any huge, Turner Skowhegan, Somerset Economic Development Corporation to help support programs like that.
So that 10 cent a gallon, where is that? I mean, is it there, is it just get mixed in, is it a bookkeeping thing,
So it shows on your income statement. But if I swipe that, then you have no money left. So we shouldn't be paying that, and that's kind of where we lost traction back a while, was because that money was pulled aside to pay down the debt and then it wasn't reallocated. You you don't take the 10 cents is what it amounts to. And.
So
So
if we changed and started taking that 10 cents and giving it to you,
it would pay down your debt, you know, that's the goal of it, but you're gonna pay down the debt only so that the town can go and incur more debt. You know what I mean?
yeah, no, I understand, but it's a selling point to the town, that we're trying to do something
Right.
to help the economic situation of that airport, and so we've already identified a couple things. So that's enough.
But we're not gonna move that 10 cents if you're not at break even. You need to be able to afford to pay the town 10 cents.
Okay.
Or you're gonna pay us the 10 cents and we're gonna give it back to you.
Right.
And now it's gonna look, instead of a law, it's gonna, not a loan.
No, I mean, we have to do it the right way, but it's a potential source of money.
Okay, so where are we leaving this? Then? We'll get feedback from you.
We're gonna work on.
Okay, that's-
These findings that.
Okay,
Pretty much what in the lab is we are abandoning the software that we use.
Yeah,
And we are gonna go back to January 1 of this year and we are going to re-input all of that into the system that everybody's used to that can give us that revenue and expense system.
so. We understand this isn't gonna happen overnight, I'm just explaining that it would help us if we had something monthly that showed whether we're gaining ground, losing ground. Just like you look at your checkbook at home to see, you know, if you got enough money to pay your bills next month.
oh, you do,
Huh, I do.
So when I get the new software, I will be able to pull you a live shot as to where we are revenues and expenses.
Perfect.
And right now, I can't. We make deposits every 2 weeks, it's a really soft system and it's gonna come around in the next 30 days. And when I realized that we didn't have the grasp on the whole numbers of the accounting system behind it, we're relying on this antiquated system solely for the purposes of invoicing folks.
Okay,
And I can do that through my utility functions. So
okay,
my goal is a 30-day turnaround on it, but.
well, it's just something for us to work on.
Right.
I mean, it may take you a year to figure this out.
It's been a project since I got here, it's probably a project that was supposed to be migrated 10 years before I got.
Oh,
It actually dates back to 2009.
and the other, how does the town know what's going on? In the airport of the town in terms of the revenue that we are responsible for.
So the town was audited as a whole with the two enterprises, which is, it's the town and then you got the sewer and you've got the airport.
Yeah,
So it all gets audited separately, it's a published report, but to be able to deep dive into those numbers and find all of that.
now it's not gonna happen overnight.
Right, and I've also authorized the expense today that would come out of the shared, the town would pay half. If we have to take it out of the reserve account, that's what we do if we need to get an auditor in here to straighten these books out. Because it's old.
Okay,
We need to be able to pull you folks, 3-page sheet, 2 pages of expenses, 1 page revenues.
yeah, just the 10,000-foot view.
Right. So we're working on that and I will hopefully have something to 45 days. If I can do my homework in 30, then we can have something in 40.
All right, that's cool.
okay, ending this subject,
Yeah, I think so, next is the AOPA issue.
yeah,
So on AOPA, I contacted them, and they put me in touch with a gentleman, his name is Sean Collins. Collins is the AOPA director for activities for the Northeast. And he happens to live in Maine. I spoke to him once on the phone for about a half hour, and I thought he might be helpful to us in a number of ways. One of the things, and I've been trying to get him to come, in fact, that was him who just called a few minutes ago, but I didn't. And speak to us, and share what he shared with me on the phone, plus more information. But one of the things he talked about was, and it sort of goes back to our month of finances, is grants. Richard, who writes our grant? Is it Gail?
Yes,
Um. He felt that that was not in our best interest. He was familiar with them. And he suggested that we consider hiring an independent grant request, someone independent to write those requests. He said there are a lot of people, he said in particular, that he thought did a really good job for Sanford Airport was the woman who manages Sanford Airport. I don't know her name.
That's a great idea.
He also said now she's branched out and is writing for other airports on an independent contractor basis.
That's even better.
So, I don't know, are we locked into Gail to write requests or write those requests?
I don't think so. We're not under contract. I think we actually have to renew in the next 12 months. Make a bid out, if you will.
Okay, so, what I'd like to do, if everyone is okay with that, I will contact her, this one from Sanford, and get some information about what she does in her business. And, you know, one thing that occurred to me, it might be a slight conflict of interest for her if she's trying to raise money for her airport as well as ours, but let's the
I
conversation.
mean, sure, if she can't do it because of a conflict issue, she could refer you to somebody out of
Right,
state.
but apparently she's doing it for a number of other airports, and according to Sean Collins, doing really well. So if we get money coming from there, perhaps it would offset some of the deficit that we're stuck with the town with. You know, another thing that you had mentioned, is, I think we had tossed this around a few times, is trying to encourage, some other commercial business to come into the airport. He said it's really hard to get a independent shop to come in because, as he said, but, you know, you might want to consider approaching one of the larger shops in the Northeast that might be interested in opening a satellite shop. So maybe like I don't know that he would do it, and I broached this with him. I spoke to Caleb Curtis over at Pittsfield, and I know that he really wants to get into avionics. And whether he'd consider opening his avionics shop on our field or not, I don't know. But that was another suggestion, was to.
That would be a phenomenal thing to happen. Not only that, we all have a need for Campbell.
Well, personally, yeah, but also, you know, it would generate income for the airport, all those people flying in on, I don't know if the business itself would generate income for the town or not, other than, you know, hangar space or something like that.
I just ordered a tail wheel from a company in Alaska called Alaska Bush Wheel or something like that. And it turned out, you know, I was wondering, this is gonna take 20 days to get shipped across the country. This is no, we have a location right in Maine. So that's where it came from.
So, I'm missing your point.
The point is, there are aircraft and avionic opportunities for us if you make somebody the right deal.
Yeah, there's an airport down in Millbrook, New York, called Sky Acres Airport, and they have a big hangar out the back. There's no airplanes in it. It's one of the avionics. It's one of the online. It's like a Sky aircraft spruce or Wix or something, and that's their warehouse, and they operate out of that. You know, we're talking about the tail wheel. Perhaps we can.
Well, I'm just saying,
Listen,
if we had a list of every aviation related business in Maine, it wouldn't hurt to send them a form letter. And say, we're looking for a business to our airport and we'll make a good deal for it, basically.
Right, well, that actually goes back to my earlier question to Richard, is there any kind of economic development program to encourage them
Yeah,
to come to Maine? If, you know, if a couple $1 million a year business was to come here, is there anything that we can offer them? Could we offer them if they built a hangar, you know, 5 years and no hangar fee or something like that?
So, I mean, that's the easy part of it, right? Goes, you make a recommendation to select board reduce that and you can waive it.
well,
If you start going
that kind
more
of
complex
economic benefits, it's a small giveaway.
So I'll pursue the woman from Sanford, and I'll also call him back, Sean back after the meeting, and try to set up a point where he can come down and share hopefully a lot more knowledge than he shared with me over the phone. but he seemed to be very amenable to doing everything he can and on AOPA's part to, and he also said we're not in a unique situation.
Any help we can get. Anything on that?
No, I just think it's it's another thing on our list that we should investigate. What are other airports doing and what's our target audience of people that we might want to try to approach to get them to come here? And what can we do for
Cal, you're okay with it? Anything else?
them? Not on that topic.
Okay, next subject is Maine DOT meeting with the advisory. That's all I know about it. You said Mike sent a letter, said that,
I'm sorry, it was Mike?
Mike Wells,
Oh, okay.
you sent a note out.
Okay, what happened was there was an email saying, what's happening with that? And I wasn't aware of it. So,
Well, he canceled, he was going to be here, I thought, to meet with the airport, and he canceled, right?
He was coming out to himself and during the pavement assessment last week and canceled out at the last minute.
Okay.
The face of the DOT have changed regularly, and it's not the folks that are used to having the struggle.
So, excuse me for asking this, Don, what was the reason we put that on the agenda item?
Because he offered to come, reading from the note now, he offered to come talk about different opportunities for the airport.
Oh, okay. Well, that's worth pursuing then.
yeah, I wasn't the lead on that one. I was just following up.
Yeah,
on the email.
Mike Wells is the one that sent the email out. And he said this guy was willing to come talk and give ideas on what we might do and what other airports were doing.
So I could just send a group email out to Mike and saying, ask him if he could follow up on that.
He would be more happy to have the airport advisory committee and do a presentation on areas for improvement, best practices, grants and funding available, and how to keep the airport viable.
Okay, so I'll ask Mike if he could follow up.
I don't want to be
Richard, you-
sensitive, however, there's a reason why this gentleman was coming out to introduce himself. And that's because he's the color of our shirts. He's new to this.
The color of our shirts.
He's green.
Oh,
I don't know what his background is necessarily, but this guy's brand new.
well, good, then we can mold him.
Yeah.
I just don't know what a resource he would be.
Is he?
You
Yeah, I understand.
know,
But let's keep the window open.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
like.
absolutely.
Should he be contacted by a representative Norwood rather than somebody?
Oh, well, that's the point I was gonna get to. I don't know that the contact should be through somebody either here or in the town, not mine.
What do you think about that, Richard?
that's fine with me.
Mike's not a member of the board.
Nope, no.
So what I'll do is I have a meeting with him and the DOT team next week on the fourth maybe. And I'll ask about setting up a time.
Yeah.
And
That'd be great.
the advisors.
It would be great.
Whether it's formal or informal, it might be better than informal at the airport, so
Right.
he's able to see the facility for the first time.
That'd be a good idea.
I'll let you
Until
know.
it's rainy and muddy.
Speak for yourself.
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
We're on a record. This is a day 2 of good weather.
Well, you just changed the rest of it.
The weekend's gone.
I know it is.
Well, you're not even gonna be.
I'm not gonna be here. That's why it's raining. I'm not going.
Anything else on this subject? Next subject, Richard. Your input.
So I mean, I don't have a whole lot of input here for you, just to kind of give you an update. Under new business, we'll talk about the equipment issue, which is the wide area mower. In my world here, we have a CIP meeting next week, which is your capital improvement plan for the airport. It remains relatively unchanged. We can't have things on there into the crossing runway. even if it's just a placeholder and hope the policy will change. They forced us to actually just remove it, so, we've complied because it's not worth the issues.
So we don't have a crosswind runway anymore?
The
We
feds-
do, but there's no federal.
There's no federal funding for it.
Oh, so we would,
Not here, it's,
we'd have to fix it ourselves.
that's right.
And so that's not on our funding plan, so our funding plan takes a look at how much is coming in, what our projects are planning and amount, and what the sources of funding are, so. Right now, we're benefiting from the BIL, the bipartisan infrastructure law, that went through under the previous administration. Like about $150,000 extra a year, which is not enough to do anything in the world.
Better enough to know.
We operate in. Well. No, right, I mean, $150,000 is like the engineering associated with new runway lighting,
Yeah,
let's be candid. And then, so
Yeah.
what we've done is we've got the engineer, let's get to that one. So we've got the runway lighting project's been deferred because we don't have enough money for the runway lighting project, came in about $300,000 over estimate. So we have broken it apart, so now it's the design phase, which is pretty much complete. And then next year, the entitlement money that comes in, we have to rebid the runway lighting and hope that it comes into the budget.
right,
Next week on the CIP meeting, we have the automated gate, that was something that we've discussed. From a safety perspective and a convenience perspective, the left side, the main, having that automated as well, the cost seemed to be relatively affordable. And because of the size of the project, we could probably bypass a lot of the issues.
yeah,
That we would normally have. It also might be a good project if the grant consultant works out to run a dry run with that individual. Because we wouldn't need all of the other permitting, we would need the grant assistance.
Okay, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt. Automated gate, we have an automated gate.
The main gate,
The truck,
Oh, the people gate?
no, the truck,
Oh, the truck gate, I got it.
right, and that is from a safety perspective. You know, folks are going out and around, and it also provides public safety, with closer access to fuel pumps and things like that. Yes, it's a big convenience factor, but, that's not how we're approaching this, so.
so you're, and everything's manual now, so you're thinking about automating that the same way we did the other day?
That's correct.
Keep people off the ramp.
Huh?
Keep people off the ramp.
Yeah,
Vehicles
no,
off the ramp.
I can totally see that.
So we've got that, and the other thing that we need to adjust on our CIP is we need to have an evaluation of taxiway A done, there's severe cracking, there's wide cracking.
Thank you.
And crack sealing isn't gonna work.
and I know, I agree.
It goes down to, I don't know, Florida, is that, you know, it sinks and sinks and sinks, and we're not making any headway, so this pavement assessment should identify that, but I'm gonna ask for them to slot that higher up on our
We need to.
project list, and it'll all be based upon cost, so.
They meaning Gail?
Gail sits in on these meetings with me and DOT and FAA. And then they update the spreadsheet, and I usually forward out a spreadsheet after they send it to me. Usually a month after the last CIP. There's that, then I'll jump into it, and that is that I have been contacted by two different organizations. About hosting non-aeronautical events in parts of the airport. They would generate revenue for the airport, and so we would need to discuss. What the board thinks of those two proposals, if you want to get into the specifics of that, we can do that.
What kind of events are you talking about?
Just 1 second, then we can go back to that. The last thing is the obstruction that we've been trying to manage and locate. And in what we thought was an easement, the landowners came in and met with me, and they insisted this is outside of the easement. And from where they've plotted it, and now my overlay, it seems like it is outside. So we're going to have to figure out with DOT and or FAA, why is it an obstruction when it's not one of our easements, because we should have those aviation easements, the ability to maintain approaches in everything that we have. So unless the rules change, we should have the right to cut a tree if they're marked as an obstruction. So Bill said we may have to have a survey, and that may be just what we have to do.
Well, it seems to me like we're guessing a little bit, like you say you're looking at the maps, and it looks like it's outside the easement and so on and so forth, but the only way to really nail it down is to have a surveyor plot out the easement and then plot out exactly where that tree is.
Yeah, so it's my understanding that topography, self-explanatory, when you look in that area and you start going up the hill.
Mhm.
They're saying it's 300 to 400 feet outside,
Is it a tree?
it's a singular tree.
Wow.
And not only that, they only want the top 5 or 6 feet.
I'll climb up there and get it.
I've had surveys done on my properties and I know how many thousands of dollars they cost. Couldn't we offer the landowner $1,000 for that tree?
You
Could
could,
be done with it?
We could, if that's a recommendation that comes from this committee that I would send to the select board. I know that there have been issues in the past with this landowner and the airport overextending its right to cut.
well, you know, ultimately, the airport would probably have eminent domain rights with that. What do you think, Charles?
I don't know anything about eminent domain, but it seems to me, spend $10,000 on a survey or spend $1,000 and get rid of the tree. It's a no-brainer.
No, it totally is, and that's a good point. I don't think a survey would cost that much to just pinpoint that one. But it's still gonna
Has
be
the property
fine.
been surveyed? Is there a current survey of the entire property?
That's what I'm,
Of ours, I believe, we have a survey on file, Ms. Dantech drew up these easements, there's charts that.
don't we have documentation that shows whether or not that tree can be cut or not? If it isn't part of, if it isn't part of the approach, then that's one thing, but either, if she says it isn't, how do we know?
Well, that, remember, the whole idea is to get rid of this requirement, or this issue about no aircraft being able to use the RNAV GPS approach to 1.5, right?
Yeah,
So we have to, and I got a big lecture about this once I found the right person. You have to submit documentation to them to prove that you've either removed the issue or mitigated the issue, or you don't have any legal right to do anything about it. You have to explain all that stuff.
well, but it's either in,
That's why I say you need a survey.
but I'm saying that must have been a survey done in the past on the land around there.
Yeah, but that
That
was,
would show whether that damn tree.
this was before they identified a specific tree with GPS coordinates. So we need to get a surveyor to go in there and say, okay, here's the easement and here's the tree. That's not gonna come to $10,000.
Okay.
So your approach back in the beginning of this whole conversation was you was gonna try to find out why this tree is an obstruction and it's outside of.
Well, it's because the FAA says it's an obstruction, so therefore it's an obstruction.
The FAA flew the approach. And at that time, there was 2 trees in the airspace. And they were interfering in the airspace. One of those trees is already gone. This was the other one. So since then, you cannot shoot that instrument approach at night. So like life flight can't get in here at night on a firefighter night. Cause we can't shoot that approach.
Yeah.
So.
I just think we need
One
to,
tree.
need to front the money
It needs to go.
to satisfy ourselves once and for all, whether the reason easement or not.
And I think in the future, you're gonna have more problems because there's more than one tree there. So it's probably a good idea to know right where your line is,
Yeah. And where our
because
easement
there
is.
are other tall pine trees in the area. They're growing every year.
So what do we do if you do the survey and then you find out they're outside of that survey line?
Well, there's 2 things we could do. One is what has been brought up is just to go offer to pay this lady $1,000 for the tree or something like that. Or try to get the FAA to give us an exclusion because we don't have any legal rights to the tree. I don't know how they would go on something like that.
So do we want to now have the surveyor identify our easement rights?
Yeah, I think we need to have the surveyor
And easement,
outline on a map. A topo map or something, where the easement rights are, and then where our ownership rights are, and then where the street is.
I think that we need to have Gail. Look at the information that they have. When they established. The easement. Or when their predecessor established the easement. To see if they have any information that can be of assistance to us before we hire a surveyor.
Yeah, I mean, all this stuff should be reported.
We're paying Gail. An enormous amount of money, and I'd like to see them do it for their pay. And if they can establish the boundary lines. For us, of the easement. Then even if we do have to have a surveyor go in and survey the location of that tree vis-a-vis the boundary line. At least we will have the documentation of where the boundary lines are.
Yeah,
We don't have to
they'll be
pay a
front.
surveyor
Yeah,
to
people-
go out and establish those.
Richard, would that be something inside their retainer, or would that be an additional fee?
no such thing as a retainer.
Nice try.
So if we were to approach them and ask them to do that, there's gonna be a fee for that.
They understand that I'm not the easiest client to deal with, and I have high expectations for the amount of money that we pay them. So every now and then they get a favor, which they've already spent some time on.
They have, and I haven't seen a bill.
And you won't see a bill. But they pretty much told us that we need to go out and locate the tree, and this is what we've got for documents.
But, and before any surveyor goes out and starts looking at anything, looks at the registry and sees. What else is affecting a particular parcel, like where the boundaries are, what calls are. There has to be an easement deed somewhere.
I have that in office,
Oh, okay,
but it's just a small fractional bump off from what we own.
understood. We just need to pin it, we just need to pin this down.
What is their annual fee?
It depends on the project,
Oh, wait.
they're always managing a project.
It's a percentage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's, they get a profit margin off from their work, and I think they're plus 13%. So they bill out their costs and plus 15%, and then it's,
So what are we paying,
Right.
what are we paying last year?
Read about surveyors or?
No, Gail.
Yeah.
Oh, Gail.
I couldn't tell you right offhand, but if it was 150, 200,000, I wouldn't be surprised.
A lot of money.
There are years when it's more. This year probably will be more because we've got the runway lighting, but then we've actually got in-ground construction that's going on, and when we do in-ground construction, they like to stay the night and you pay meals, hotels and everything else, and they like to come up and meet with you. When we have our CIP meetings, that's all grant related stuff, they can build that out, so there's obviously 3 or 4 people who discuss this.
Okay,
It's. They've been good to work with for me. But the whole situation is enabled by the Federal Aviation Administration. And these hoops that they make you jump through. And I only know that much in depth on a like basic project when I'm proving out $30,000 of reimbursed expense from the FAA for COVID money. I spent probably 4 days filing the paperwork to submit my expenses. And another day filing the closeout, even though it was all in one. I'm sure if you're good at it and that's what you do for a living, it's much easier, it becomes cookie cutter, but it's a complex process.
it must have taken me 30 phone calls to find out the person. Cause there's a person assigned to every airport in Maine, that's a public airport. And literally, it took me a day to track the guy down, just, once I got him, he was very helpful, but
This is FAA or Gail?
FAA,
Oh,
the FAA.
So we'll see if we can lean into Gale, what we can get out of them. And then we'll look to the FAA to identify.
once we
What other
have
issues
all
we
our
see?
ammo, I go back, dig back into this.
who's our liaison between us and the property owner?
Me,
You had a less than pleasant experience with them?
nope, they were good. I reached out 3 months ago, 4 months ago, and I sent them a letter and said, look, this is what we've got, this is the location, or maybe it was an email. Eh, different personal situation going on, it wasn't productive, I would have been valuable to us if, no, so I let it go. And anyway, then we had discussed, is there opportunity, we knew timing was an issue, is there opportunity for other trees in the area to be gone so that they could make a little bit of money off from this because there are other trees in the area. We were talking about letting them use the airport, which they don't have the legal right to, but that would be kind of the exchange to clear out more. Anyway, it. Sensitive as much as I can be, in the past, the behaviors of town officials or the airport officials weren't friendly to these landowners. Guess when we acquired this easement, we went in and we cut a lot of trees. And then we cut outside of the easement.
Oh,
And we ended up negotiating the settlement with them for the value of the timber.
So I.
And they believe that they will low for the value of the timber. So I appreciate that. And I'm putting on their shoes and saying, don't care if it's one tree, I'm gonna let them take their time because it doesn't work for anybody. If we don't go slow.
Okay, we'll leave that in your capable.
Thank you. It's a
Well,
sensitive situation.
Well, you've got a relationship with them too, alright, we'd have to start over and.
They're good people, but they're hesitant to trust us, and I don't blame them.
Yeah.
We've done it once.
Yeah.
So,
Shan, did you wanna say something?
No.
Oh, okay, that's not sure.
So, next, new business, is that just the tree issue? We have anything else?
He's got something else.
Oh, okay.
well, we can start with the events if you want to, or should we start with the practice?
I'd start with trying.
Start with lawnmowers. So we acquired a wide area mower, which is the most beautiful piece of equipment for an airport. Secondhand, off the books, really, through Hammond Tractor. A number of years ago, 6 or 7 probably. We got it for 13,000, I think the price was. It's now done. It's burning oil and it's not going to take care of us and how much, what it's gonna last or anything else. Dana had reached out to some folks, we had reached out to folks, it cost prohibitive to do something with it, so. I asked Bruce to reach out and see what we could get for prices, so he reached out to United Ag Turf. And then Hardy's here in town, realizing that a wide area mower starts at 60 grand.
Starts at what?
60 grand. And can go up from there, so we looked at a mid-level commercial mower.
This is the one with the 60-inch.
Yeah, yep, so what I did was, I printed off the spec sheets for
Yeah.
the 2 clumps, so. The Gravely 60-inch curb turn 500. Is that model there, and the price that we were giving was 13,000, that's from Harvey, seeing the North. And I went to find a pump at John Deere, and that pump is not available until August, and their price on that was 15,375. So then I said, well, that can't be my price, right, because we're in this municipality, there must be an incentive. And they said, oh, well, yeah, but we can't get you that. So they offered us this up, which is the Z965M, which is on the same spec sheet, just in the column, I think, to the right. And they kind of highlighted that a little bit for you, you see down through what the differences are. They
That's
came
the
in,
14.6.
that's the 14,663, and that's with our municipal discount, so it's a better machine than what we'd initially had for, but it also covers the cost there. So also under the town's purchasing policy, just so you all folks are aware, we have provide a 5% leeway, if you will, allowance for Norwich Water taxpayers, based businesses in terms of purchase. So that gives the Gravely dealer being Hardy's that 5% window, which is an additional $600 or $700. But that's not really gonna be the subject. The subject is gonna be, do you want that upgraded for another little bit of money, or is this great machine?
They're both 60-inch, right?
Yep.
So,
Gravely does make good products, but the closest dealer is all the way over in Sydney, almost.
Dealer.
Howdy, Reggie.
Oh, there's a dealer right now.
well, if I may, I bought a zero turn a few years ago, primarily to mow my runway. My runway is 2,500 feet by 100 feet. And I wanted to buy a 72, but I couldn't find one, so I bought a 60, and I'm really sorry that I bought the 60, because it just takes that much longer to mow that much grass. So my feeling is we should look at the 72 and not the.
And then we may not have anything to mow this summer.
I lost you.
The big mower's dying, and he's got a little.
Right, but I'm saying if we're discussing which mower to buy, I'm suggesting we buy the one that's 72, not 60.
Well, I mean, there's a cost benefit, because it takes somebody less time to mow.
Well, that's the other thing, you're paying an hourly rate or a salary rate to mow, and if we can't get it done, there's that trade-off there.
Yeah. That's one, I could go either way.
I'll give you the flip to that. Does he have the time? You're not gonna save any money, you're not gonna send him home because he can mow it quicker with 72-inch than he can 66. So where you say, you're gonna pay him a salary. Okay? It may take him a little longer to mow, but you're not gonna save any money, is what I'm saying, on his salary. You're gonna pay him,
You're gonna save some of his time.
Yeah, you're gonna
but
say,
if
So
he's
you
got,
can do something else.
if that's what he needs, yeah, I agree with that.
Is the 72-inch available?
Bruce is trying to say, what?
No.
The only thing that I can say about 72, and I understand where you're coming from, I don't disagree with that wide area mower cuts 12 feet. That's nice, but the 72, yes, is better, but Joe Deere told me they wouldn't be able to even begin to find a 72 until September, or October, not even in the pipeline.
Same true with Gravely?
I don't know about the Gravely, I don't.
do they not
Say
work like a car?
stock?
Sorry,
Excuse me.
does it not work like a car dealership? If you can't find one locally, they'll find one for you in Massachusetts or Rhode Island and ship it over.
It's not, they can't stay ahead of it. There's so much of a want for the 72s that they can't keep up with manufacturing.
Are we locked into John Deere, or is it?
No.
I have been to that, the people that took over the Hammond tractor. And I bought a Gator, from them. I bought a mid-sized tractor, conventional tractor, and I bought a couple of lawn tractors from them. And I said, this is one of my requirements, it's my own weird thing. When I buy a piece of equipment, I don't want one that's been sitting out on a lot for 6 months, getting pummeled by snow, ice, rain, etc. I want one that's never seen the light of day. And I tell them that's part of the deal, and they found those things for me and had them shipped here. So. That's a big outfit, they have locations all over.
So, question is, if the 72, I'm gonna give you a rough estimate, the 72 is probably gonna cost $2,000 more than the 60. Should we consider that, or should we stay with the 60?
I don't know enough about it to be able to. I don't.
I can't remember the price of the 72, but it was.
Couple $1,000 more.
But at least.
Got a tractor with just a bush PTO.
No, that, we have a tractor, right?
Yeah, that'd be way too big, you'd have to have a finish mower for one tractor. This is,
I know,
You can-
but
You can
why
buy
do we have to have a finish mower? I mean, we're not a golf course, yeah, I mean, you wanna
buy a finished mower to pull behind the tractor with PTO.
What about that? Put it by now.
That's a big track to be driving on the septic system.
It's a skidder,
Yeah, that's,
That's a big track.
that's too big to do that.
it's not a lawnmower.
Yeah, I'd be out of sight.
I have no idea what I.
It's heavy.
My driveway can't take that.
No,
Well, how about if we pursue get the cost on 72 and then decide whether we should just
Yeah,
forget about it or consider it?
Bruce, is that something you're okay to do, or do you want us to do it?
the bigger the better is, well, you know, as long as we can get one. So we're on the edge of.
Yeah.
Any else surprise.
I thought you said this morning they didn't have anything in the pipeline anywhere and didn't know when they'd have it.
For what the one salesman at John Deere told me. No, I didn't.
Okay, all right.
You know what I mean? That's what he said. He said the 72s that John Deere sold were way behind. Across the country.
What about, sorry,
Question, John Deere is the company that has pioneered the whole, proprietary information with regard to repair. And what they're the ones that, for a lot of farmers, created a lot of issues in that you can't get repair information from them. The only thing you can do is hire them to fix your mower. Period.
I thought there was,
Everything, including oil change.
I thought there was some recent legislation that.
There was right to repair passed,
Yeah,
and so far, there hasn't been a lot of cooperation. There's a lawsuit pending right now by several manufacturers against the state's right to repair law.
yeah,
Don't know how that's gonna turn out, but John Deere is probably the toughest one to deal with of all of the companies that have gone into the right to repair, the proprietary information business. So just, we need to make sure if we buy it, that it's not subject to that, because that would limit our ability every time we wanna have something done. They leave Fairfield, they give up. They charge you from the moment they leave, and it's expensive, and a lot of farmers are finding that it's too expensive, and that's why they're not buying John Deere's.
So the 5% thing he was talking about, I mean, Hardee's is cheaper than John Deere anyway, right?
They did not give me a price for the comparable mower from John Deere because they didn't have it in stock. The mower that they gave me a price for is one level above. It's next level up.
Which one?
What we have in price quote
John Deere.
From John Deere.
from John Deere.
Okay.
You'd spend the extra, if you gave them the benefit, it's another $700 for John Deere to be the next step up.
for the same 16 mower.
So it was 14,663 from John Deere.
Yes. And if I add the 5% benefit to Harding's price, that's $13,986. So it's $675 difference.
You mean for, so the price you have from Hardee's is 13.
Right.
And if I give a 5% factor, they benefit from being 5% off.
Right, but they're already cheaper than John Deere.
But that's not the municipal price. And that price that's from John Deere is also achieved in August. So I did not get a price quote under our municipal plan from John Deere on that exact comp.
All from John Deere.
Correct. The,
But the ones, you do have prices from John Deere, 115, that's not due till August, but those are both 16 small.
that's correct, they're all 16-inch mowers, it was a little bit different in the end. What they're proposing, the 965. To the public person is 17,465, is how they're retailing what they're selling us. And that price with the municipal benefits came down $2,800.
So the real question before we go any further is which do we want? Gotta
So-
decide that before you can do anything.
So if you're looking at the specs on them though, the one from John Deere. That was. 15,375.
With no discount provided. They do not give us an invoice for the discount because I didn't ask them for it.
Well, where I'm going with this is, the one that you do have a discount on is 14,663. If you look at the specs on them, they're all three mowers are 60-inch mowers.
Correct.
The only difference is the engine. So. The one from John Deere that we have, that's a 60-inch mower, is 14,663 with the municipal discount. That has a 33 foot power. Yeah. The other one had 27 foot power, or they won't have it till it's a 30 foot. No, I'm talking the other John Deere one.
The other John Deere should have been a 31 as well. They were almost identical machines. The second line of that.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So, and the Gravely is 31, so it's 2 horsepower different.
These are all, gas as opposed to diesel.
Correct.
Because if you get over a certain horsepower with the diesels, there's all sorts of extra requirements for maintenance and what you have to do.
I mean, if I could speak candidly, not overstep. I feel like we don't go to the John Deere dealer without opening up our pockets very wide. And I feel like you get better treatment regardless of the price difference. It's negligible in the grand scheme of the difference between the pricing.
Right.
And I think that it benefits Northwell to, even if it costs more for a little bit to spend it right here and have the ability to get it serviced right here.
But I guess what I'm getting
And
at,
Gravely is a good,
I've dealt with Patty quite a bit, and John does a great job.
how, I
He-
mean,
he
I've done
really
business
good
with
to
both
deal
of these guys, but how is Patty's full? To me, it looks like it's less.
Because you're looking at apples and oranges. When you look at this John Deere tractor,
Yeah,
that they priced the 14. This $14,000 tractor is retailing for $2,800 more. This is the retail price of the Z960. So if you take $2,700 off from that, you're gonna be down below the other. I just did not have John Deere get me a price, municipal price, on this because it wasn't available until August.
right.
is this Gravely based?
No. He just submitted us a price. He knows how it works. I don't know if they have such an aggressive program.
So to me, that one's out of me, because you can't get it till August.
That's why I didn't ask him to draw me up a quote for it.
Would anyone have any objection to looking at a third brand being Bobcat, who they do make a commercial grade mower that competes with both of these?
In
And there's a-
Holland, all New Holland also.
But then there's a Bobcat dealer in Madison.
Well, there's one right in Augusta
Well, Madison's closer,
too.
but if you want to keep the money full, but you know. Any objection to pursuing Bobcat?
No,
I have a relationship with them. If it's all right, I'll go get a price. And, or would you rather it come through your office?
I
Should
think,
go through you.
If you have a contact there,
Yeah.
you are more than welcome to go and talk to them. You wanna make sure that we're getting apples to apples, because if we don't get apples to apples, then it puts us at a disadvantage.
Okay.
It's all public record, but, you know, it kind of takes the wind out of people's sails when we talked about what somebody's put up for a price. So we try to be mindful of that. And I think that also we need to get, and they need to email me something. What the ask is. Make sure it's municipal, but then we also need to decide if we wanna do a 60 or a 72, or do we wanna get prices on both?
I think we should get prices and then decide which we want. See if it's feasible. Everybody disagree?
I agree with that. It makes sense.
Prices 60, 72, and lead time.
I get, and what that boils down to is, will our existing equipment finish through the summer?
That's what I'm
Contracting.
wondering about. Can you get through the summer with what you've got?
Negative,
Okay,
I was surprised you got through today. Honestly, I mean, I'm not,
Which one do you use?
the zero turn, I mean,
It's always.
you know, I can still get that, you know, I haven't done anything with a John Deere, I mean, it still runs, but I mean, it burns. I don't know when that's gonna, but the zero turn is. It quit on me 3 times today and I had to take it back, let it cool down, go
Is
do
this a-
something else. It's
a new machine?
No, no. No. It's got almost, what, 1900 and something hours on
Was this the one from Public Works?
it. That's from the old public works,
So we got for free.
she's worn out,
Why
It
the
mowed
price?
many a cemetery.
yeah. So there is, you know, just a caveat, there's a time factor.
I have a little, I have a little bit of heartburn. When we're trying to do things for the town, with the town, for the airport. My opinion is if we're gonna do it, we ought to do it locally. And that's the way I feel, I got a bit of heartburn over this. And
Oh, I agree.
Very supportive.
It'd be great if we could do it locally, if price is right and availability is right.
So,
No, I agree. But anyway, if you wanna get a third price, that's fine. I just think we need to keep that piece in mind. Are we all in agreement that if we're gonna get it 60, yeah, a 66?
A six,
60 or 72?
that's,
60, I'm saying
is
60.
it possible to get a price on a 72 from Hardy?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm gonna do,
Availability.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna revisit all this, I'm gonna ask. John Deere to get us the municipal price for the 62 that we thought, for the 60 inch that we thought we wanted.
Right.
Then I'm gonna ask for a 72, and then if they have anything else they wanna offer us. With regards to lead time, they might say, well, I've got this one a lot, and sometimes they wanna get rid of something, so. I think that what we'll do with we'll go to the 4 vendors now. We'll go to Hardy's, New Holland, Bobcat, and. Greatly, John Deere. And I'll do my best to get them out or get them copied early enough so that the tractor guy can look through the specs on the tractors.
so. So you wanna look at the warranty too, and the Greatly. Has a little bit better warranty.
It is, but it's not gonna matter, I don't think, because the first 2 years are free to everybody. Everything's covered in the first 2 years. So it'll depend on the hours that we have, right up.
So you're gonna get the information on the 4 of them and get it out to us?
I'll scan and get it out to you. If you want a hard copy, when I email it to you, I will make sure the hard copy is available here.
Anything else?
And I'll check on the cat and give you the contact.
No, just to agree on a date for the next meeting.
Well, no, and he's got, I
No, we
think
got the
something like
event.
that.
The event.
Events, I don't know.
All right.
Huh?
You're right.
Okay.
The first item is the Pine Tree Jamboree. This takes place, I wanna say toward Rockland Way. And they want to locate themselves at an airport. So what they do is they drive antique cars fast. They're not peel automobiles or anything like that. It's more of a sport show, so it's called the Pine Tree Jamboree.
Yeah.
And what they wanna do is the reason they want an airport. Is because they wanna be able to fly in these large planes that are at the Owl's Head Transportation Museum. And be able to showcase those to the public. They tell me that they're gonna have 1,500 people plus or minus that will participate as a part of this event. That they will require porta potties, they will want to be able to camp in a location, don't need connection to electricity. And they will have their portable johns or whatever you call them, if they are tented, if they're camping in camper trailers as opposed to tented. And then there obviously would be a fee, and the fee could be negotiated. It could be done based upon fee through the gate, it could be done as a flat rate or something like that. And they're willing to negotiate on that. That is something that's proposed for mid to late September.
one day or multiple days?
free.
And so, who do we collect our money?
It would be from this Pine Tree Jamboree.
Okay, so they would agree on a price people send advance.
Correct.
You have a ballpark figure, what kind of money we're talking about?
I don't. I mean, if they tell us that 1,500 people are gonna come through the gate and they're charging $10 per person, we say we want 3, well, the $5,000, 4,500.
Does it mean we shut down the airport?
No, it would, I think that there would be times when the airport would be shut down.
Like an air show, like an air show?
Right. But no, the goal would be to lay them out in a way that minimize the impact on the airport. It would upset operations, but we would still be able to fly. Because again, they want these planes to come in, they want planes to be able to come. And the idea behind flying these planes in is that it would be another market of attraction for people to come to their event.
And we have the right size runways to do it.
They're gonna, I assume they'll keep their planes here for 3 days?
The people that are coming in by planes, it sounds like,
No, I mean, the
oops,
show planes are
I'm
the,
not sure about that. It's very initial, before I moved in any further direction and spent my time, I wanted to gain a consensus from it.
So the only interruption would just be for a few days.
But this is not the first item. If we do it, and I think it's a good idea, quite frankly. But if we do it, we ought to have some ground rules that we're going to follow when somebody wants to come in. That's my big concern.
like what?
I got someone comes in and said they wanna use the place for a drag race. Middle of the winter, they wanna come in and snowmobile race.
Oh, so you're not talking about this particular?
No, I'm just saying, we need a set of ground rules. That when somebody says, I'd like to use the airport, Ken has a business going, we're gonna affect that. We ought to have a list of ground rules, here's what you have to meet to come in.
Well, why don't we just do it on a case by case?
I don't think so, but to me, you can't, no.
Why?
Because you're gonna tell somebody no, and that somebody's gonna get all wound up and wanna raise a heck about it. If you have a set of rules and said, you meet these rules, we'll decide. And then, to me anyway, pick a time, how many days a year do you wanna shut the airport down for non-aviation activity? I don't know, I just think we ought to have ground rules. I just think it would be a mess if we don't. But I don't know what the rest of you guys.
Well, depends on. We're gonna be negotiating with multiple different people. And each of them is gonna have something different or unique to add that the other won't.
I agree, I think,
You gotta pick your best shot.
I would have, hey, we wanna have a nudist convention at the airport, I mean, they're certainly gonna be outside your ground rules that we're gonna write up. I think it needs to be on a case by case.
Yeah.
I still, whatever the group, I still think you need ground rules.
I like.
They can be very broad, but you need something. I think.
Well, going back to your, this particular one, sounds all good to me. I don't see any downside to it, except maybe a little bit of inconvenience for
Yeah.
somebody that might need to get their airplane out at a specific time, but I think that's a minor inconvenience, and I think sounds like a good idea.
We've got to take advantage.
And it would be something that the town,
That's right.
the non-aviators in the town could enjoy also. Hey, let's go to the airport today, because there's got something cool going on there.
We need to look at different ways to make money for that airport.
Well, I'm even saying from a PR standpoint.
You know, I
The money's great, but from the PR standpoint, to bring all the, the kids in, to say, hey, let's go, something to do.
No, I think that's great. And we can
I'm
make
all
money.
for that. Anybody else? Anybody against it?
No, not against it, no.
Yeah, you can, you think it's a good idea?
You're,
I'm on the outside, so it doesn't affect me, but I think it's a great idea. I think it brings good, like you said, PR for the airport.
Hey, if
It's
you
gonna-
broadcast the fact that there's gonna be all these antique airplanes that are coming in here, good size, people will flock to the airport.
I
As
think
part of
it's
the, as part of the, I agree, we should be, these are the kinds of things that we should.
Sure.
But I, in a sense, there's one thing that Dawn has mentioned that I agree with in terms of ground rules. Who's gonna provide security? We should make sure that they provide security. We should make sure that they provide cleanup after we're done. That
And the
trash,
trash hogs.
that's one of the,
Trash
that's
all
the
over
kind
the
of
place.
stuff we need.
they need to pick up the trash. They, if there's gonna be camping, we need to have rules about. They're going into the terminal building and, you know,
Yeah.
using
We don't wanna
And
put,
campfires.
campfires and so I think it's a great idea and I'm very supportive of going forward. But there are some rules that we need to lay out to make sure as we negotiate this thing, that we're not gonna wind up getting screwed in terms of a $5,000 cleanup bill when they pull out and leave stuff all over the place.
So how do you do that without holding a security deposit, or is that what you do, you hold a security deposit?
Well, you figure it out when maybe some you do and some you don't. And either that, maybe you say there has to be a security deposit for anybody that wants to, maybe that's a good idea. We need to take the time to figure out the ground, to me, to figure out the ground.
there's all sorts of stuff on the internet about organizing public events, charitable events, things that you need to do. I've looked at several of them myself. So they're there, that information is out there.
You had another one you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'm sure about that. Yes, so there's another one and they were targeting this year, the scheduling of it all did not allow for that. They're now looking at 2026. They were introduced to our airport through the Mid-Maine Chamber of Commerce. Chamber of Commerce has identified the airport as a unique venue for the region. Nobody else has one that's like ours. And so when they have folks calling and saying they want someplace to go, they're asking us to consider moving forward. This is the New England karting, I'll say champions,
Karting?
karting, go-karts.
Oh.
This is an hobby of people. They have visited the airport. They traveled in from out of state to conduct a site visit. They're working on site plan layouts. They too are wanting to negotiate terms if it's acceptable. My concerns with them. It's, you know, the same concerns I would have with the Jamboree, striping, runway lighting, striping, runway lighting, and then personal damage. Because we have to maintain our surface, so, I did not shut them down, I am waiting to get more information from them, but they're in the same kind of a situation where they want to come to the table and offer a percentage of gate fees or something like that. They refer to as the inside trapezoid towards the, terminal building is what they would ideally be able to use as they execute this event.
So I take it that's gonna shut down the runway because they're gonna be racing around and golf cart, go-karts. Is that a 3-day event also?
I think the target is a 3-day event,
No.
but I can't swear to that.
Would it only be shut down? Why they use it for what?
Correct.
There's a lot of ways to make this.
So
stuff
we
happen.
need more detail
Right.
and what they wanna do and.
They wanna run loops, and it's like EVOC, just on a smaller scale, and with
Yeah.
go-karts, but that's,
And is it a spectator event that would draw in?
it's both.
That's right.
Supposedly they have a huge following of people that follow us around the Northeast. And they also have times throughout the day where you can pay to rent one of these carts and go out and drive yourself. You can look at New England.
Runway lights.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Right.
Runway lights.
These are the first, and it's odd that it happened in the way that it did, but they've all come in the last 8 weeks. And our biggest concern into with these types of programs in the past was reception of aviators and insurance. And these groups have never been able to come through with insurance, but these are regional organizations that can provide us with the qualified insurance that we would need.
Yeah, you wanna be a named insured on somebody's policy.
That's correct, but then that's what we require.
That was gonna be my next question about the chair.
Right. And nobody, but we've had people wanna come and drag race, things like that, it's like, oh, great, you're one of the people, but do you carry that $1 million or $2 million policy? No, that's what it has to work.
That lawsuit involving the monster truck down on the coast is lobbying $2 million.
What percentage?
where the monster truck went up, hit a power line, knocked it down,
Yeah,
all kinds
Okay.
of people were injured.
yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
every year there's accidents on these Christmas, hay rides, you know, where 15 people get hurt, and I handled a number of those cases, and they were not.
Well, I was on one in the Dunbrook.
Yeah.
That's on a brand new case tractor,
Yeah,
and it snapped, it snapped this a big front tractor. And it snapped the spindle off the back of the tractor.
that's because it wasn't a Gravely.
So Rich, I guess the
You had
consensus
to.
here.
You had to do that.
Well, let's make sure, sure.
Probably 20 people on the
I mean,
pavement.
that's the first question I asked. You provided me with substantial.
And you like to close the runway lights, well, you cover it on the insurance if they do damage with that.
That's exactly.
That's
I
when we
think
need
it's
to,
any
That'll
property,
be covered.
property damage.
we need to put a plan together and then we'll. Any other new business?
Just to, if you don't
Go
mind.
ahead, no, go ahead.
Just to address what you said, when they were out there looking, and we talked about how they were gonna set that up. And it's not just as fast as you can go, they come into places like, say down at the end of Run 33. They set up like a little serpentine, so the car has to slow right down.
Yeah,
And then
they put cones
It
up.
would be set up completely, because like he said, his insurer, they wanna know. And my concern was runway lights, I don't want you guys cleaning the runway, so he said the way they could set that up. It would, the carts would be going so slow. You know, trying to get through that little serpentine and 2 or 3 on those corners, that if they did spin out, it wouldn't go far enough to hit the lights. So they have hay bales, they supposedly do all that kind of stuff, so.
Okay,
Well, the last thing I'll just add to that is, I know you're gonna check
yeah,
them
we do
all,
all those, don't.
Yeah.
is, the overall thing we come back to all the time is, how are we gonna help the town and benefit the town? Again, those go-karts, I imagine they brought, it's something for families to go to and that kind of thing, so.
Yeah, those are major
That's
spectators.
right.
Yeah, so even if we didn't generate huge income, their, connection with the
Positive
community,
vibe.
yeah.
That's a big part of it, I think you hit it on the head, because I mean, when all those people come to go to the airport, they stop at the store. they
Yeah.
Stop at all of the convenience
Right.
stores,
Bottom line is we need to find ways to generate income for the airport. And I know there's gonna be some pilots that'll be on, I can't fly, no, it's a rainy day weekend, you're not gonna fly today. Go ahead.
The way they talk when they were out there, it would be a 1-day event. They have the whole crew comes in, sets everything. Clean up, pour the toilet, they do the whole thing. And then they have their own security, they have their own gate, they have their own parking people. They clean up,
Yeah, I
everything,
mean,
all done, and then it's a 1-day. They come in the day before and pre-stage everything, and, you know, the airport's open, and then a day of the race. Well, that's the way they explained it to me, was like a 1-day thing. When they were done, they'd break down and they're done. And just clean up the, what they had.
wouldn't be a
Airport
bad idea.
buildings.
I'm sorry to be interrupting, it's a really bad habit. It wouldn't be a bad idea, there must be multiple vendors that do this sort of thing. And to get a reference, you know, say where they had some big event, ask how they got treated.
That's what I did.
Okay. Anything else on new business?
I've got just 2 quick things that I should have put under my report. The first is, well, 3. The first is, yes, we are inconveniencing some hangar owners with access. It's short-term pain, long-term gain, for those hangar owners. The expectation of those hangar owners is that they'll pay their full fee. There's no exception for that, and it's included in the lease. So, if you're hearing pushback out there, you know, it's part of it, and again, the airport, the town,
And
there's people.
I haven't heard anybody.
People are.
Yeah.
Entities are investing to improve the airport, and, you know, 30 days isn't a lot of inconvenience, and be free tie downs. So if there's any, please, direct them to me, or let them know that it is what it is, and you're gonna benefit.
I haven't, they were notified and I haven't heard a person
I haven't
complain.
heard anybody complain.
I
A
haven't.
lot of people.
I have somebody that has sent me an itemized proration of their hangar fees because they don't have access to their hangar for this period of time, to that period of time. And you can readdress it with me if you're able to lift the restrictions around my hangar. That's just not good for anybody.
Didn't
So
you,
if you hear that, please share that.
didn't you send a notice to every one of those hangar owners that this was gonna take place and when?
Yes,
Okay,
so now.
they had
next thing
time.
is, there's a text service that we use for townwide events and notices and everything else. Bruce and I were talking about this the other day because everybody comes in after all the signs and the letters that we mailed to their homes and everything else and said, well, I didn't know about it. So now you could text fly to 38276 and I will let you know if there's a hangar road that's gonna be down, or if there's a special event or anything else. We have these makeshift signs here, that I put in Bruce's box, they're gonna be laminated, we're gonna put them at the gas pump, because maybe people from away wanna know, not just people that are at the airport. It could be townspeople, whatever, sign up for that, and we're gonna make up a sign that can be at the gas pumps that's durable. And then the last thing is that I finally was able to pirate a Facebook page for the airport. It's an important part of public relations. And so I've got that set up and we'll start adding information to that. If you have things that you wanna share as pilots or anything else, please feel free to send it over to me. I'd be happy to put it up, whether it's pictures or unique weather conditions or anything else. Happy
Set up a Facebook page for the town of Norwalk Airport.
Right, so I have Norwalk, I have the town of Norwalk, and then I've got the library, and now we have the airport.
Yeah.
Um,
Those things are tremendous, Mark.
that's correct, and so if you have sunrise, sunset pictures or anything like that that we can share, email them, text them to me, and I think that would be a good way for people to see what's going on out there. We're hoping to get some construction pictures, things like that, you know.
Posting gas prices.
We will, I literally just put this online in the last 2 weeks. But I think it'd be a good way for people to connect to people that had and other pilots to share stuff. It'll be relatively unrestricted to what you can put. So you can go on there, go to Facebook, and you can post to that, and it'll just be subject to a review, but it'll post immediately, so.
Yeah.
Great, anyway, another method of outreach for folks to understand.
That's great.
Thank you.
That's great.
Any other new business?
Richard, I see that the fly-in is on already, we can.
Yeah, sorry, so Sula Days, hopefully we'll be together before then, but August 31st will be the airport event. That'll be the first day. I'm hoping that it's gonna be just as big or better than ever. We've got live music booked, we've got the tents and tables and chairs already booked. I've got a petting zoo, I think that's gonna actually be there. All of that fun stuff. So solicitation letters went out, are going out tomorrow morning, and we'll hope to get some good feedback on that, but,
Okay.
August 31st will be the day out there.
What's the Saturday?
August
Sunday.
31st will be a Sunday.
Sunday,
Yep.
sorry, Sunday.
Next meeting date. We did this on a Wednesday, the last Wednesday of the month. You wanna do it the last Wednesday of the month?
Why me?
It doesn't always work that way.
Oh, okay.
How about if we let Richard
Yeah,
tell
you
us?
pick the date.
Yeah, let him pick.
If you want it fixed, that makes it difficult. That's-
No, you pick the date.
I would like.
And fly to that number and Richard will, it'll come on your text.
Yeah.
Doesn't work, I signed up and I ain't got any messages.
You don't get anything back yet?
How is June 26th, Thursday, June 26th, though?
6,
So be it.
next meeting, 6:26. 5 o'clock, all right, for everybody?
But
I think it's awesome to have this, get this meeting started.
I think, I thought, I personally thought this was great, it's not what I expected. I am very pleased with
Yeah.
what I've seen,
Okay.
very pleased.
I'm disappointed that we have all. No, it's not.
Just take him home.
Awesome at the airport.
I
I'm
don't
leaving them in the office.
be off that.
Power rings.